It was kind of interesting, you know, in the early 1990s when the top of my head blew off and I kind of was staggering around trying to make sense of what was happening to me, because suddenly I was seeing the world in a very different way, and I was seeing myself in a very different way. Some people call it a spiritual awakening. Notice spiritual awakening, not religious awakening. I'm going to have some t-shirts done, you know, God save us from religion. It's kind of funny, you know, you talk about spirituality, people think you're talking about religion. Often it's the opposite. Not always, but often. And religion, for me, is, in many cases, the opposite of spirituality. In my definition of religion, religion is the greatest form of mind control yet invented, and at its most extreme, psychological fascism. The manipulation of fear and guilt to control. Spirituality is the opposite of that. It is setting the spirit free, celebrating our uniqueness, because we're all aspects of the same whole, but we're all unique aspects of the same whole. And crucially, respecting everyone else's right to express their uniqueness, free from imposition of someone else's belief system, someone else's version of right and wrong, moral and immoral. All this is crucial to how a few control the world. Because we have become, yes, in many cases, terrorized into denying what we are unique. And once we do that, we become a herd mentality. And it is the herd mentality that is the vehicle for the manipulation of the world by a very few people. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Symbolic example. I was down south in England, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now, and across this great area of, it was one of these Iron Age hill fort type things, but across it was this vast herd of sheep, hundreds of them. Never seen so many sheep in one place. And it's a nice day, you know, and I'm enjoying the day. And then the farmer arrives in his pickup truck, parks it, gets out of the truck, and I swear to you, I don't think he even moved an eyelid. Stood there against a stick. 1 or 2 or 3 of the sheep immediately react to, it must have been his eyelids, I guess, I don't know, because they're going in the desired direction. Within minutes, it's like Exodus. Hundreds of them are following the one in front, you know. I haven't got mine of my own, we did this yesterday, so we do it tomorrow, I guess we'll do it today, and all that stuff. And the few stragglers, and there were remarkably few, who didn't immediately conform to what you might call that bar mentality, they were given the extra dose of fear with the sheepdog. Row, 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 row. All right, all right, all right, I'll go quietly. This combination of the bar and the fear rounded up this vast herd of sheep in a ridiculously short time. And I stood there and I thought, because I do from time to time, I'm looking at the human race here. This is how it's done. This is how a few can actually control the mass. Because you can't do it with tanks in the streets and soldiers at the door. There's too many people. It's like trying to physically herd sheep together. You can't do it. You'd need a man, maybe more than one, for every sheep to do it physically. You have to do it through the mind. Either through fear or through conditioning people to think the way you want them to think. So these hundreds of sheep were rounded up by one fella flicking his eyelids every now and again, and a sheepdog dispensing fear. And that's how it's done in human terms also. It's amazing the extent to which we have given our power away, our spiritual power. It's all about taking our power back. Because once we do that, it's all over. The great pyramid of manipulation becomes impossible. But when we give it away, we're a doddle to manipulate.
Say goodbye.
Kind of sexy, right? This is an old cover of Playboy magazine, 1963. I really like vintage magazines, and I think I prefer pornography from the 60s and the 70s. I think it's really tastefully done. And that's what I look like when I'm taking a shower.
What we call normal is the psychopathology of the average. You say, why is it so dominant in our world? It's part of the hypnosis of social conditioning. You know, that's how our media, that's how our advertising, that's how our products and our services, they're all about instant gratification for the skin-encapsulated ego.
When we're watching television, our brainwaves go into the same brainwave state as they do in a hypnotic trance. And what that does is open the mind, open the psyche to programming from, and what do we call those things between the adverts? What do they call them? Programs, television programs. It's television programming. So we think of a hypnotist programming people in a stage show, but the media, not least through television, is constantly programming the human psyche with a sense of itself, a sense of the world, a sense of what's happening in the world, a sense of what to think about people like politicians and Obama, what to think about the way the system works. If we succumb to that program, and vast numbers of programming, and vast numbers of people do, then we're simply going to go through robotically, just like the Stooges on a stage hypnotist show, and we're going to react to the world, and we're going to behave in a way that we've been programmed to behave in. And this programming is 24/7.
Mainstream media, and especially commercial advertising, all corporations who need this infinite growth have convinced us, or brainwashed most people in America, and hence the world, that we have to have X number of material possessions and the possibility of gaining infinitely more material possessions in order to be happy. That's just not true.
You have to stand in awe at the level of brainwashing where these programmed robots known as consumers wander the landscape only to walk into a store and spend, say, $4,000 on a handbag that likely costs $10 to make in a sweatshop overseas, only for the brand status it supposedly represents in the culture.
So why do people continue to buy in this way, which is ultimately eco-genocidal in its systemic effects cumulatively? And it just is classical operant conditioning. You simply put inputs of conditioning into the organism, and you have outputs of desired behaviors or goals or objectives. and it has all the resources of technology. And they boast about how they get into the minds of infants. What they hear is already making them conditioned to the brand. Then you see, well, that's how people have been such fools. In a way, they've been taught to be fools.
We might wonder why so many today have a compulsion to shopping and acquisition, when it is clear that they have been conditioned from childhood to expect material goods as a sign of their status with friends and family. The fact is, the foundation of any society are the values that support its operation, and our society, as it exists, can only operate if our values support the conspicuous consumption it requires to continue the market system.
The system, when you study it, from cradle to grave, be it education, media, all these things, they're all, even religion to a large extent, is designed to pull our focus of attention into body-mind. It's the same, a very good analogy is you're on the internet and suddenly the computer takes control of what you think of the internet, where you go on the internet, and the decisions you make. And the more entrapped you are in mind-body perception, i.e. the five senses, and look at society, it's all about pulling us into the five senses. Look at this, listen to this, taste this, feel this, all trying to hold us in the five senses. The more entrapped you are, the longer it takes, the more powerful the transformation has to be for you to wake up, open your mind, and go to higher levels of your awareness.
Of now, it's vast, it's alive. You are the spaciousness around phenomena.
I was growing up, people were talking on their front porches, neighbors were playing baseball, there were nightly barbecues. You don't see that anymore. We've lost our communities. You drive through neighborhoods, you see the blue glow of television sets. We're losing our humanity.